The body of 18-year-old black teen Nolan Xavier Wells has been found. His white friends who were with him on the trip have already hired lawyers. Wells vanished July 4 during a 4th of July boat outing to Horn Island, Mississippi, about 10 miles off the Gulf Coast. A park ranger found him in the water near the northwest end on July 6th. His phone was not with him. It was in his father's possession. The island has no cell coverage and is only accessible by private boat. Search teams, including the Cajun Navy, scoured land and sea since his disappearance. Authorities have not said how many people were on the boat or who made the missing person report.
Let's get right into this, because this story just keeps getting heavier every single time new details come out. An 18-year-old kid goes out on the water to celebrate the 4th of July with people he's called friends since childhood, and within 24 hours, he's a missing person. Within 4 days, he's a body pulled from the surf. And the people who were with him that day still can't give a straight, consistent answer for what actually happened between 3 in the afternoon and the moment he ended up in the water. Before I go any further, if you're new to this channel, I'm glad you're here, and if cases like this one, the ones that don't sit right, the ones where the official story and the family's gut feeling don't quite line up, if those are the cases that pull you in the way they pull me in, do me a favor and hit subscribe. Tap that bell icon too. This case is moving fast. New information is coming out practically every day, and honestly, without that notification, you are going to miss developments that matter. This channel is called The Last Witness for a reason. We don't let these stories go quiet, and I need you with us for this one. Okay, let's talk about Nolan Wells. Picture your typical 4th of July. Boats on the water, music playing, everybody soaking up one last big holiday before summer starts winding down. That's exactly the day Nolan Wells was having. 18 years old, a wide receiver for the Southwest Mississippi Community College football team, home in Ocean Springs for the summer, out on Horn Island with a group of friends he'd known basically his whole life. Horn Island sits about 10 to 12 miles off the Mississippi Gulf Coast, a long, narrow, completely uninhabited barrier island. No buildings, no stores, nothing out there but sand and water and whatever you bring with you. And here's the detail I need you to hold on to for the rest of this video. The only way on or off that island is by boat. There's no bridge. There's no ferry running on a schedule. If the boat leaves without you, you are stuck there until somebody else comes to get you. By every account from people who knew him, Nolan was the kind of kid a room got brighter around. His mother, Christine, later wrote online that he was always willing to cheer for other people, always willing to lift somebody else up. His college president released a statement calling him an exemplary student and athlete, someone deeply respected by classmates, faculty, and staff. His high school coach said his character spoke louder than his stats ever did. This wasn't some kid nobody cared about. This was a young man surrounded by people who loved him. So he's out there on Horn Island on the 4th, with the same friend group he'd been going to that island with for years. And around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, something small happens. Something that at the time probably felt like absolutely nothing. Nolan starts talking to a young woman on the north end of the island. His friends decide it's time to head back to the mainland. And instead of everybody piling back onto the boat together, the story that's circulated is that Nolan tells his friends to go ahead, that he'll catch a ride back with someone else later. It's the kind of thing that happens on a beach day. You've been to that island together dozens of times. Nobody thinks twice about it. Except here's where it stops sounding so casual. When the friends left, Nolan's phone stayed behind on their boat. So even if he wanted to call his mother, call anyone, tell someone where he was or what was happening, he had no way to do it unless he found a stranger willing to hand him theirs. Hours pass. It gets dark, and Nolan never comes home. That's when his mother, Christine, does what any mother in that position would do. She starts making calls. She gets on social media, posts photos of her son from that very trip, and pleads with anyone who might have seen him to come forward. And this is where the response from the community becomes honestly kind of remarkable. Volunteers with an organization called the United Cajun Navy mobilize almost immediately. Boats, drones, aircraft, all of it, alongside the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, Marine Patrol, and National Park Service rangers who oversee that stretch of coastline. One of the search coordinators posted publicly asking anyone out fishing or jet skiing in the area to keep their eyes open for a young man, about 6'1", 180 pounds, last seen talking to a girl on the north end of Horn Island. For nearly 2 full days, that search continues with no answer. And I want you to actually sit with what that means for a mother. Every hour that passes without a phone call is its own kind of torture. You don't know if you're about to get the best news of your life or the worst. You just wait. Then on Monday morning, at around 8:45, a park ranger doing his normal rounds on the island spots something in the water near the northwestern tip. The volunteers who'd been flying search grids overhead that same morning said they noticed a cluster of boats suddenly gathering on a stretch of beach that had been empty just an hour before. Within minutes, it was clear this wasn't a search formation anymore. It was a recovery. The Jackson County coroner said there was no reason to believe the body wasn't Nolan's, though authorities held off on a full official confirmation until dental records could verify it beyond doubt. By Tuesday afternoon, that confirmation came. It was him. Now, here's what I think is one of the most gutting parts of this entire story. Before any of this was even confirmed, Nolan's mother had to publicly warn people that scammers were already setting up fake fundraising pages using her missing son's name and photo. She had to fight off predators before she even knew if her child was alive. Once an official GoFundMe was set up by a trusted friend, it raised well over $200,000 in days. Money meant to cover funeral costs, a celebration of life, and just helping this family survive the unimaginable weeks ahead. That outpouring tells you something. This wasn't just one family's tragedy. An entire community absorbed this loss. So on paper, at this point, you have what looks like a devastating accident. A young man decides to stay behind on an island, and somewhere along the way, something goes terribly wrong. And I want to be fair here, because there are theories from people close to this search that do make some sense on their own. Search volunteers who were flying over that stretch of water noted there was a strong rip current running off that part of the island that day. Someone could get pulled out fighting a current like that, even someone young and athletic, especially if they were exhausted, dehydrated, or overheated after hours in extreme summer sun with a dangerously high UV index. It was also pointed out that under Mississippi law, once you're over the age of 14, you are not legally required to wear a life vest while on a boat, only to have one accessible. So the fact that nobody was in a life jacket in the photos taken that day isn't necessarily suspicious on its own. That's just simply legal, if unsettling in hindsight. But here's the problem. None of those theories are confirmed. Not one. The cause and manner of death have still not been officially released. An autopsy was performed by the state medical examiner, but toxicology results, the test that would show whether anything else was involved, could take weeks to come back. And weeks of silence, in a case already surrounded by unanswered questions, is exactly the kind of gap that speculation rushes in to fill. And that's where this story stops being a simple tragic accident in the eyes of a lot of people watching and starts becoming something a whole lot more complicated. Because Nolan Wells was the only black member of that entire friend group. Every other young man on that boat, the ones who made it back to shore that evening, is white. And in a story that plays out in the deep south, on a remote island only accessible by boat, where one young black man is left behind by his white friends and later turns up dead in the water, people are not being unreasonable when they start asking hard questions. Why did nobody stay behind with him if his phone had been left on their boat? Why? If there was any concern for his safety at all, would a group leave one person completely stranded on an island with no way to call for help? And why has the explanation for what happened in those missing hours shifted and blurred depending on who's telling it? Adding fuel to all of this, a video began circulating online that some claim shows an intense altercation involving Nolan on the island that day, apparently captured in the background of someone else's footage from a completely different moment. I want to be really careful here, because as of right now, this video has not been authenticated by investigators. It has not been confirmed as real, as accurate, or even as actually depicting what people think it depicts. But once a clip like that hits social media, once thousands of people start slowing it down, zooming in, arguing over every frame, it becomes almost impossible to control the narrative around it. The sheriff's office has publicly asked anyone with original footage, photos, or documentation from that day to come forward so investigators can actually verify what's real. I want you to take a second and see how people online have actually reacted to all of this, because the emotional and racial weight of this case has completely taken over certain corners of the internet.
Stop going on motherfucking vacation with these white folks. Your white friends call you, say, hey, bud, what's up? Hey, you ain't going on vacation? No. Hell fucking no. Because y'all keep going on them vacations and they keep coming back home and we can't fucking find you. You got to tell them white people no right now. Not all of them, but some of them you got to tell them no. I can't fucking swim. Why I'm going out there in the ocean for?
If my kid hangs out with your kids and my kid is the only kid that does not come back alive, everybody dies.
You can see why this exploded the way it did. Now here's the piece of this story that really poured gasoline on everything. One of the young men on that boat is the stepson of a sitting Mississippi judge. Once people online started connecting that, started asking whether a judge's family being involved could somehow shape how seriously or how carefully this case gets investigated, that judge temporarily deactivated her Facebook account. And predictably, that silence did not read as innocent to a public already on edge. It read as hiding something. A few days later, she came back online with a lengthy statement, saying she wanted to dispel rumors with facts. She said she'd actually grown up in the same community as Nolan's mother, that they'd graduated from the same high school, and that her family deeply respects the Wells family and is grieving right alongside them. She said neither she nor her husband were on Horn Island that day, and that her son had been interviewed by investigators and had fully cooperated. According to her account, her son last saw Nolan around 3 that afternoon, and the group left because their boat had started taking on water from a mechanical issue with the bilge pump, and that Nolan made the decision himself to stay behind. She said no one in her family has done anything to obstruct this investigation. Now, is that the truth? I genuinely don't know, and neither does anyone else outside of that boat watching this video right now. What I do know is that grief and suspicion have a habit of colliding hard in situations like this, and when a family with judicial influence enters the picture, the public is going to demand a level of transparency that a Facebook post alone probably can't provide. The local NAACP chapter has also stepped into this, with its president publicly saying that race is unquestionably part of the equation here, and that the organization intends to make sure this investigation is conducted fully, fairly, and without discrimination, while also urging people not to jump to conclusions before the actual facts come out. And honestly, that might be the most balanced thing said publicly about this case so far. Meanwhile, the Wells family, understandably, is not simply waiting around to see how this plays out. They've retained nationally known civil rights attorney Ben Crump, a name you've probably heard attached to some of the most high-profile cases of the last several years, cases where families felt like the truth was moving too slowly, or not moving at all without outside pressure. Crump released a statement saying Nolan's family deserves the truth, and that his team will not rest until every fact about what happened to him on Horn Island is brought fully into the light. The family has gone even further, having Nolan's body flown out for an independent autopsy, a decision families typically only make when they don't fully trust that the official process alone will get them real answers. So where does that leave this case right now, in this exact moment? We are stuck in the gap between two very different stories. On one side, you have an explanation that sounds almost mundane, a group of young friends, a mechanical issue with a boat, a young man who wanted a little more time on the island, and a tragic accident born out of a strong current, brutal heat, and exhaustion. On the other side, you have a grieving mother who has not been given a confirmed cause of death, an unverified video that's already spreading faster than investigators can authenticate it, a judge's family caught in the middle of public suspicion, and a community that has watched stories like this one before, stories where a young black life gets quietly filed away as an unfortunate accident, right up until new information forces everyone to look again. I do want to be fair and mention that some of the friends who were with Nolan that day, people who reportedly grew up with him, have apparently been receiving death threats online from people convinced of the worst possible version of this story before a single fact has been confirmed. That's not okay either. Nobody, on any side of this, deserves to have their life threatened based on speculation. If Nolan's friends did nothing wrong, they deserve to have that established through an actual, thorough investigation, not through an online mob. And if something did go wrong out there, something that hasn't been told truthfully yet, then Nolan's family deserves that truth just as urgently. This case is still unfolding right now. As this video goes up, we do not have a confirmed cause of death. We do not have confirmation on that circulating video. We do not have the results of the independent autopsy the family requested. What we have is a sheriff's department that insists this case remains open and active, a family that has made it clear they will not quietly accept an unexplained ending, and a community, both locally and now nationally, watching every single update. As soon as any of that changes, the toxicology results, anything new from that video, anything further from the family's independent autopsy, we're going to come right back here and walk through it with you, piece by piece, the same way we always do. Before I let you go, I want to leave you with something heavier to actually sit with. Why is it that stories like this one so instantly split people into two camps? Those who assume the absolute worst about the friends who left him behind, and those who assume the absolute worst about a grieving family and a community demanding real answers. What does it say about where we still are as a country that so many people's very first reaction to this story was, "I've seen this before"? And if you had been the one stranded on that island that day, alone, with no phone, no way to call for help, and no way to leave unless somebody else chose to come back for you, what would you have needed the people around you to do differently? Tell me what you honestly think down in the comments, because that's what this channel is built around. Sitting in the uncomfortable middle of a story instead of rushing to a conclusion just because it feels satisfying. If this case has gotten under your skin the way it's gotten under mine, please hit subscribe and tap that bell so you're notified the moment we have something new to bring you. Because with an independent autopsy still pending and this investigation still officially open, I promise you, this is nowhere near over. This has been The Last Witness. We'll see you in the next one.